welcome everybody to the BCS Hampshire branch, also with Dorset branch, and also with the BCS e-learning specialist group. We've got a fantastic session in front of us, but just to mention about the next couple of things that are coming up. So as well as today, which is very much on the T level, which is very much the new situation that's coming in for dealing with the sort of 16 to 18 type group. We have next week, there is on the Monday, a session about how to obtain CEng, Chartered Engineer status. There was some 3 presentations that I did about obtaining charter status and fellowship, and we had a detailed session on obtaining the BCS CITP. Now, on Monday we have obtaining the Chartered Engineer status. Now, even if you're just not interested particularly about the CEng, but you are interested about a charter, then I suggest that you actually join for that session. Because a lot of the requirements for chartered applies whether you're chartered for CITP, for chartered scientist, or for chartered engineer. Also, we have an interesting session on Wednesday, the 23rd of March, and this is led by Dorset in conjunction with Hampshire branch. And this is a speaker from the Ordnance Survey talking again how they're bringing people in, very young from college, and developing them to develop their own software engineers in-house. So I strongly recommend that one. So at that stage, what I'd like to do is to go back to the interesting session that we've got tonight, and that we have both 2 speakers, Debbie and Beth. They actually both gave a lovely presentation for us on the 21st of February, talking about the T level, particularly from the point of view of the employer, but now talking about from the point of view of the lecturers and the wider use, including the students. At that stage, we're going to have it is now recording. So in which case, what I'd like to do is pass you across to Beth and Debbie.
Hello, hi, good evening, and welcome everyone. Before we start, can I don't know if you want to introduce yourself, so Beth and I can sort of like see where you're from. So if you're from a school or you're from a college. I'm wondering who we can start with first.
I think probably if everybody puts into the chat where they come from, and then it won't disturb your presentation.
Lovely.
Started off with I'm actually based in Bournemouth, so I'll add that into the chat.
Thank you. That's great. So Beth and I are from, so I'll just keep an eye on the chat. Beth and I are from Fareham College, so that's in the southeast. It's a further education establishment, and I am the digital lead for T levels at Fareham College, and I also work with the design team for the NCFE, and also write computing qualifications, and I review the T level education HODA education book that has just been released. Beth, over to you.
Hi, I'm one of the work placement officers at Fareham College. So I'm responsible for sourcing the work placement aspect of the digital T levels that we're running at the moment. We, as a college, we run a variety of T levels, and more are coming in each year. So yeah, our team is responsible for sourcing and arranging the work placement aspect of those.
Okay, if you want to share the screen for me, Beth, and I can then start. So I do work for the digital T levels, but what I'll do is I will talk about the T levels broadly as well, but my examples will be from digital. But feel free to pop a question in the chat, and we can facilitate that. Next slide. Thank you. Okay, so the T levels were created in last year. And we were one of the colleges that actually ran the pilot. And we were in our second year. So we ran the digital T-levels and the education and childcare. So what is the actual T-level and where does it sit? So you have current routes at the moment. You'll have your academic, which is your A-level, your traditional A-level route, and that usually progresses straight to, after you've done your A-levels, then you'll go straight to uni. The government brought in the technical qualifications, which came about because there was or there is a skill shortage, and what they've done is almost like fast tracking. So after you've been to further education, you've done your 2 years on your technical level, whilst you're working with an employer, and that's a minimum of 45 days, which Beth is going to touch on a little bit later. You work alongside, so you have the application of your technical qualification, then you work alongside the employer, and after the 2 years, it's, although we don't like using the slogan "try before you buy," or some of the government externals don't, literally from the employer's point of view, you can progress to university. You've got more choices. You can progress to university of your chosen specialism. So for mine, they might want to go into computer science, they might want to specialize in cyber, they might want to specialize in robotics. Or you can actually stay with the employer, and if they offer you, you can do higher apprenticeships, or you can do a higher technical qualification. So there's a lot more opportunity with the actual technical level. So it starts with, and this is for all T levels, it starts with a technical qualification. So that is 80% in the classroom and 20% with the employer. So the T level is a traditional, it follows on from your GCSEs, and it is a level 3, so it's equivalent to 3 A levels. I mean, it does sit alongside the same sort of like as the A levels. The only difference with, I would say, with between the A levels and the T levels is the T comes with industry placement. So you will have, and I'll talk a little bit more about so the exams. So they do have exams, but they have 2 papers exactly like the A level. So they have 2 academic papers along with, in the first year, small project. So that could be a 22-hour project, depending on their actual T level that they're actually going for. So it would be media, that will be the same. Education childcare is a little bit different because they will be assessed and observed in the workplace for their sort of project. That's what that's their sort of like the knowledge and skills. And yeah, and the digital will have in the first year the 22-hour project. In the second year, for digital, we have a 67-hour software development project, and that's over 3 months, because that they're actually building, they've learned over the sort of like the 2 years, they're building a full stack development. So that's like the front end and the back end, like a front end, like the website, and then all the back end and all the workings like behind, so all the coding that will go with it. So our assessment methods are: year 1 is very much exam based, as in the 2 academic papers, and then you do the project, and it's a small project, and then in the second year it is one large project that's bringing all your skills together. Learner experience. It's very different than a traditional A level or a BTEC as well, because you are, I don't know if I want to use the word exposed, but you are given that opportunity to be with the employer. So you also learn work ethics, and, you know, I mean, particular our model, and I'm happy to share our model with anyone. Our model is that we actually we don't particularly send, when the pupil comes to us, we don't particularly send them straight out. We have an employability specialist that will work with them and work with their confidence, that work with them sort of like any sort of like, because it can be quite daunting if you've never been to work and you're like asked to go into the workplace. So we work with them. Beth and the team she works for also come in and give talks. So we kind of introduce them to the employer. We do, so myself, I actually do projects with the first years within the kind of the first 6 months. We do what's called digital transformation, and then we get a team of employers or a panel of employers to actually talk through what the students have created. So take a manual process and they digitally transform it, and that's quite interesting and quite beneficial for the student, so that they can get used to speaking to the customer. We've been doing that remotely, but you know, you could easily do it face to face as well. Next slide, please. Thank you. So the grading, so the T-level, the technical qualification is graded A star to E in the first year with the employer set project. And then the overall, so that's called like the core grade. And then the overall grade is, so in the second year, so it's pass, merit, distinction, and then the overall grade is pass, merit, distinction. So if you can see the table here, depending on what they get in the first year, and then what they get for the occupational specialism. So for instance, if the two papers in the employer set project, they received a B in the first year, and then in the second year they received a merit, and then would just go along, and then that would be an overall merit, and that's what they would achieve. So it's really good for me. I give them this grading qualification straight away, so that they're able to see what they're going to aim for in the first year, because it kind of affects their grades for the overall grade. And next slide, please. Thank you. So the T-level, depending on the T-level, it's depending on the entry grades. If you're doing a digital T-level, we ask for grade 5 and above, certainly on the maths side as well, because of the coding that's attached to it, and they will need that mathematical sort of like higher skill. We also, on our model, we do a higher maths and English. So we just do 1 hour a week on English, which actually kind of aligns with the questions. So how I do it is I actually align the English, A-level English, it's just like I say, an hour with a fantastic lecturer, and he will look at the questions, the type of questions, how they're going to, it's scenario based, how they're going to answer them, and he will base his English lesson on that. And maths, we actually do core maths, so they do 2 hours a week on core maths, and on the core maths, what they do, that really lends itself to problem solving. And although when you look at going to universities do like the A levels and the ASs, however, you know, the mindsets are being changed. They recognise that, you know, that you can't really have an A-level alongside a T-level, because the T-level program is so is so packed with, you know, employer kind of, you know, looking like towards sort of employment. So what we do is we do the core maths, which really helps, like I say, with their problem solving. And we've had this year that my students are progressing universities have actually accepted that, and hopefully that will close the gap in future, and they'll recognise it more. It's just very new. It's still under the kind of like the pilot terms. So it's something that hasn't really been done before, and universities are, you know, are looking more into it and understanding it. So what do you think, you know, what would be a profile of a typical T-level student? Well, the T-level student would be those that are wanting to do, to still do the academic qualifications. So still do an A-level, but also they actually want to, whether they go to uni, they'd like to come out and actually go to a job where it actually is what they've actually studied. And often you find that sometimes isn't the case, because they ask for work experience, and where they're getting the industrial placement experience as they go along, you know, they don't have any issues. And often as well, I've got 14 on year 2 at the moment, and at the beginning 10 of them wanted to go to uni. Well, now it's changed, and they're applying for a degree apprenticeships, and they've been offered the placements. So 4 of them have been offered work, employment, higher apprenticeships. So there's lots of opportunity and progression, and like I say, not everybody wants to go to the route to do a 3-year uni course. They'd like to come out and to work straight away. Next slide, please. Thank you. So raising the potential student expectation. So going into schools, and I don't know if we have any schools here, that's been quite challenging, because schools don't often understand what the T-level is. They'll look at the traditional A-level with the BTECs. The BTECs are being aligned or realigned or slimmed down, and the technical qualifications are becoming, you know, sort of the forefront of skills for of a good skills route for pupils that leave sort of the education and want to go on to further education. It is a stable careers programme, so there's no two ways about it. It certainly, you know, it does introduce them to the employer, and they do build that strong relationship with the employer. And quite often, mine after sort of certainly after 6 months, they might be offered paid work in the summer. It depends what they're doing. Learning from the career and labour market information, that there's certainly since the pandemic, there is skills. There's certainly a technical skills shortage in all sort of like the T-level sort of all like the skills. So certainly in the media, certainly in digital as well. There's a lot of shortage, and you know, the T-level will close that gap. Working with industry has been certainly fantastic for the lecturers that teach the teaching team. They get to look at relevant information from industry. So you know, upskilling, we've been offered, you know, from our employers to go and upskill, see how they're working. And it's quite important that if you haven't been in your industry for a long time, it's really important to actually to go in and upskill. And certainly we consider ourselves very lucky. This is encouraged from the senior leadership team that we can upskill, and it's been great. I've been managing to upskill, and it's on, you know, different sort of sections. So I've done some ISO training with employers, I've done some animation. And yeah, and it's been it certainly has been beneficial for the students. So progression with further and higher education. What I would say is that for the school leavers, if they don't quite achieve the grades, and depending on what your set grades are for your college, if they don't achieve that, what we've done is we've put in a pre-T. So we've put in a T, like almost like a level 2 that has, so for us, we have three strands in digital. So we have the software development, the digital support, so that's like the network infrastructure, and the digital business, so that's like the analytics. So we have 3 strands, and on the pre-T they get to do all 3 on project based, and that's been quite interesting. So they would know, you know, what route they want to go. So that's quite it's quite a nice, if they haven't quite made it to the level that we've expected, we'd put a pre-T in. Next slide, please. Okay, so these are just some figures that I've acquired. This is just at the digital sector, but if you looked at the sectors that you teach or that you're interested in, we look at, you know, what the skills gap are, and I won't read them all out, but we are sort of like small, medium businesses, enterprises are suffering from a technical skills gap. And this could be that they need to digitally transform their business, so from a manual process to a digital process. Next slide, please. So these are just a tiny proportion of the actual careers that they could, if they're digital, they could go into, and that's really a wide range for any T level. So any T level, you'll find that they have a wide skill set, and this is why it's so interesting with for a student to go on to the T level, because actually quite often when you're 16 years old, you actually may not know, or you may think you know where you want to go because you've got limited information, but actually the more you the more you find out about the careers, the more you realize that there's a wider path out there. Next slide, please. So the assessment, as I've mentioned earlier, so on the year 1, it's very much like I say, the academic papers with the small project, and then on year 2 you have you choose your occupational specialism. Software has 1, but the digital support has 3, and you choose the specialism that is most suited to yourself, and you can actually choose that through, it can be straight away, but it doesn't have to be. It's as you get more sort of like involved and with your employer, and that is and that's over a set period of time. Okay, next please. And okay, thank you very much, and we'll now move on to Beth. Thank you.
Hello, sorry, I had a little bit of a technical difficulty there. I couldn't quite work out how to how to bring up the little thing to turn my video on and my microphone back on again. But we got there in the end. So yeah, so I'll be talking a little bit about sort of the placement aspect of the T level. So the industry placement is sort of the heart of the T level qualification. That's actually a direct quote from former Education Secretary Damien Hines when they were in the process of developing the T levels. So as Debbie mentioned earlier, the T level industry placement is a minimum of 45 working days, so 315 hours of placement. This actually increases with the early years T level to, I believe it's 780 hours, which is quite a lot, but they tend to do sort of more block week placements rather than the 1 day a week model, which, yeah, as you can see there, that is sort of the two options for delivering the placement is you could do a 1 or 2 days per week. So the students are in college or in school for 4 of the 5 days a week, and then out on placement on the 5th day. Or they could go out on block placements. So this could be multiple weeks at a time, or you can do a hybrid of both. So that's what we tend to do at Fareham for most of ours. So the students will go out 1 or 2 days per week, and then have a couple of block weeks implemented throughout the year. So the benefits of the T-level placements for students. So the T-level placements are great because it gives students the opportunity to become part of like a homegrown workforce, as we like to say. So this is also a huge benefit for employers taking on industry placements, because they get to really sort of train the students up from the ground up, which means that they will integrate much better into the team and really work as part of that business sort of intends, if that makes sense. So then, as Debbie said, the T-level placements then lead on to university or higher apprenticeships. They can also lead on to full-time employment, which is sort of especially an option if the industry placement goes really well. So the industry placements are so vital because they really provide the students with new skills and the ability to develop their CV. You learn so much on an industry placement that compared with sort of peers are doing like the traditional A-level may not acquire through that time period in their life. And then, yeah, as it says at the bottom there, the T-levels can lead on directly to employment, whether that be sort of part-time employment through the summer or full-time employment following the completion of their course. So these are some quotes from our employers. These sort of help us to see how the students actually benefit the employers. So the first one there, having the T-level students on board gives us that ability to actually find the right people in order for us to nurture and grow for the future. So that really leads into the idea of companies having a homegrown workforce, which is really nice for the students because they're part of the business as they're growing. And then the second quote there, we have to remember that the future are the T-level students. So again, that as T-levels are growing and more are being introduced, T-level students are they become qualified in such a unique way that they really are the future of businesses. And then, yeah, the last two there. So the students have actually given us ideas to develop further concepts. Young people have such innovative ideas, and industry placement really gives them the opportunity to put those ideas into practice. So as you said, as the employer said there, it's given them ideas that they hadn't previously thought of. So it really is a two-way street. It's beneficial for both the students and the employers. So the placement process from the student perspective, so obviously every college is going to be slightly different in how they do this, and it also depends on the area and depends on the employer. For digital, we've found that most employers want to see sort of CVs and do interviews. So this is sort of the general placement process for the area that I look after. So we will contact businesses and get sort of acquire roles that are available for placement, and we'll then tell the students about them. They'll then tell us if they're interested in those roles. We'll then collate their CVs together and send them off. They'll then go on to do interviews with the employers. So this can be anything from sort of a more formal interview to just a really informal chat. Employers are mindful that these students are only sort of 16 to 18 years old. So try not to make it sort of too formal and scary for them. And then once they've attended those interviews, if they're successful, then amazing, they get to start their placement. Obviously, if not, then we just go back and find another one and try again. Okay. So yeah, that's sort of a brief overview of the T-level placement process and how T-levels benefit students. Thank you.